Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back.
And if you hear any rumbling, it's thunder in the background. If you feel any shaking, that's just Sassy.
That's Sassy. She can't help herself. She's so scared.
She's sitting on Mama's lap right now, squished between the two of us because she's terrified of lightning.
Kind of drooling, poor baby.
Yes, and again, she is our 8-year-old Lhasa Apso?
Shih Tzu.
Shih Tzu. Uh-oh, he did it.
He did it.
I always get those two confused.
Well, because they look so much alike. I think Lhasa Apsos are a little bit bigger.
Yeah, maybe a little chunkier.
Yeah, a little chunkier. But we wanted to say a huge, huge, huge thank you to our Patreons, Mohammed, Mary, and Alex. Thank you. You guys, all of your help and all of your support allows us to keep doing what we're doing.
Yes, definitely. We couldn't do it without your support. And also want to thank everybody that has been ordering from Medicinal Foods and supporting both Medicinal Foods and the family. When you use coupon code EEA, you do get a discount. And again, when you go check out their products, and there's a link at the top of every video, also go check out some of the articles, because they have a decalcifying the pineal program. They talk a lot about detoxing and boosting the immune system. And you guys know we're under attack every single day from frequencies and toxins in this world around us.
Yeah, so we need to do what we can do to reverse it, or at least, get our systems so that they're strong enough to defend against it.
Absolutely. So Kazakhstan, you could see it sitting right here. And it's most definitely, if we were in time of warfare, it would be a key area in Asia. Absolutely. Here you see Russia to the north, China to the east of Kazakhstan, and then south you get into Afghanistan, Pakistan. Of course, there's Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Europe lies off to the west. This is a key area, and just for fear of getting this video demonized, let's say, we're not going to go too much into the Khazars, but boy, is that an interesting history. We have touched on that on Evolutionary before. This video is going to be going up on EEARTS. So when we look at what's going on, we see order is mainly restored, so they say. Dozens have lost their lives, and the terror threat level has been raised. And this is talking about what's going on in the 6th day of crisis in Kazakhstan. It's interesting because this is a new threshold. As you see, troops from other countries came into this country. Of course, Russian troops were amongst those. Now, what is really going on here? There are many videos out there that say what this really is an uprising of the people against the system, period. Not necessarily just due to fuel prices in quotation marks. So what do we get from the guides?
Well, we get that this is a very ancient people. They have very important energies. These are energies that we want to pay attention to as we are evolving. These are heavy-hitting energies. These energies push forward and they move us along in evolution. So many of the guides we work with, many of the entities, aliens, you can call them aliens, they watch this species because this species is it's a marker for big change.
Yeah, especially, and again, we're not talking down about any one people or anything. There's different lineages involved. And of course, just like when we talk about different extraterrestrial races, for instance, you will find individuals that don't go along with the norm, just like you will in humanity. And of course, everything when you get down to it are varying degrees of gray, so to speak. That line of thinking 50 shades or a million shades of gray, as opposed to everything being so black and white. But overall, this is an interesting area, and even just from a geopolitical standpoint, this would be sort of a crossroads, as is the Ukraine. And here you have the potential for a greater conflict in this area, most definitely, as well as in the Ukraine. So, what we're seeing going on is very interesting, to say the least. And we have NATO ruling out any halt to expansion. They said they never promised they would not expand. And, of course, that is not going to help the relationship with Russia get any better, because Russia has said there cannot be any more NATO expansionism, especially on its front door, which is exactly what has been going on. But we do understand that this is part of a script. It's part of the bigger plan. And we see UK military chief, Russia cutting underwater communications will be considered act of war. Now, this is coming out because of this video that emerged. And this is out of the Sun, shocking moment when Russian stealth sub crashes into a Navy warship as crew member shouts, "What the bleep have I just hit?" And again, this has to do with a Royal Navy warship that was tailing a sub, a stealth sub. And then there was a collision with the sonar cable that was being dragged. And, one of the things that would happen right away would be targeting all sorts of communication. And there's underseas cables that would definitely be targeted because, again, cutting off the ability to communicate limits the response of countries in wartime.
Absolutely.
So it's something to watch. Now, the guides said, and our brother, I think it was Mark or was it Raven, that first mentioned Wolf going off in the Galapagos. So Wolf Volcano, the tallest in the Galapagos Islands, erupts spewing clouds of ash and gas 12,444 feet over the Pacific Ocean. What, did they get a little tape measure out to measure and make sure it's 444, not 443?
We know what those number stamps mean.
Yes, again, it's all that symbolism going on. But you got from the guides that this is something that is a marker of where we are in the Earth changes.
It is. It's a significant marker. So when they see activity here, they know that there is something else about to happen. It's a marker. It's a marker for change. It's a marker for a new phase. This is important information being spammed out to a lot of different entities who are paying attention to tell us where we are.
Absolutely. So, we are getting close to some major, major events. And I don't think I'm the only one that when we saw the X by the two eclipses that will fully have occurred April 8th, 2024, with the first eclipse in August of 2017, then the second eclipse coming just a little bit over 2 years from now, that it's right over the New Madrid. And when you look at the lines of where do these eclipses go, well, one of them originates up in Cascadia and ends up down in Charleston. Of course, Cascadia is a major zone, absolute major zone that we are watching. And, now that let me just bring this up again, because I feel this is so important, really, in the bigger scheme of things. X marks the spot. It's so, because is it coincidental? In case you guys missed a couple of our recent videos too, because when you look at this right here, that goes through Cascadia. Right here down by Charleston is another major point where you could have a major earthquake. As the Great Quake of Charleston liquefied the ground, literally liquefied the ground. It caused a lot of damage, and it was over 7. And then, of course, right here is the New Madrid. It's kind of obvious. It's kind of like a hello. This is talking about major earth changes, but also, tribulation kind of period for most definitely humanity. Is the whole globe is under tribulation. We could see that. Also, when you come up through here, it's interesting because this area in Mexico gets big quakes as well. And this is actually where my family comes from on my father's side, and a beautiful area. And then the St. Lawrence area up here, the St. Lawrence River, this is another area that when you look to some prophecies like Casey and others, they talk about this expanding greatly and becoming a bigger seaway. So it's pretty interesting just to look at this. So I've kind of taken this to be that one way or another, artificial flavoring very likely is going to be involved. We might be looking at Cascadia, which would trigger the San Andreas, which could trigger the New Madrid, as we know the way the energy moves from what Dutch Sense and others have taught us. But Dutch has done a great job over the years of teaching us how the energy moves. Over here, it would definitely end up triggering something over eventually in the New Madrid area, which would trigger something over here too, more than likely. And by the way, there's been a series of quakes in the Columbia, South Carolina area, which are curious, but they do feel like those are artificially flavored, and they very, very well may be related to deep underground military bases. But still, at the same time, what are they doing in those deep underground military bases? There'll be those that say, the white hats are getting rid of all the, scaly ones, let's just say. But what we've gotten from the guides is that's not the case yet. We're hoping for that, but that's not the case yet. And so when we look at some of the changes going on, and some of you might want to not look at this, and maybe it won't play. Let me just see as we bring it back up here. This is in Brazil, and very scary, very sad moment when a cliff just unexpectedly falls. People are in a gorgeous area, and boom, it's one of those things, a sign of the times, perhaps. So sad. We send our prayers for everybody over there. And unexpected floods in Queensland, Australia, leave 15 missing as ex-cyclone Seth wreaks havoc. 26 inches of rain in 24 hours.
That's a lot.
It sure is.
That's just going to destroy everything in your yard. If you had a garden, bye-bye.
Most definitely. Panic after strong and shallow 6.6 quake hits northwestern China. Animals and people going into a frenzy. There's videos and pictures over there as well. We definitely are seeing an uptick. We're feeling an uptick. I think people are sensing major events are on the horizon.
Yes, they are.
In many different ways. Sassy is definitely sensing it.
Yep.
And, here we have at least 22 people that have frozen. Literally frozen. And trapped in 4 feet of snow in Pakistan, as this is just incredible. And in Washington, you see more than 3 feet of snow in 24 hours. So we have records breaking, as we have had ever since, it seems, 2017.
Yep.
It's been like a nonstop, crazy roller coaster ride through the apocalypse since 2017.
It has been. It's definitely a change in vibration where things took an uptick, and they have totally changed.
And glowing. See, we don't usually edit when I say glowing. It's not glowing. No, hopefully those potatoes are not glowing, but they may be. You never know.
He's just adorable.
They do irradiate food.
Yes.
And many people, maybe that's what I'm supposed to be talking about, and that's why I did that little flub. How many people recognize and realize that a lot of our food, produce, is irradiated? Why in the world would they do radiation? Now they say, well, protect us against harmful bacteria and stuff like that. I don't want irradiated food.
No. And it's normal for us to take in certain bacteria, certain amoebas. And why are they trying to make our surroundings pristine? I know it's not because they care about us.
Well, actually, they do it quite the opposite. It ends up not being pristine. It's turning the world into one big Fukushima.
Yep.
When you get down to it. And then that gets us thinking about all those legends of the wars of the gods that occurred in the skies overhead that so terrified humanity that couldn't. Well, we're used to seeing ships flying overhead and having these Star Wars type battles. And again, there's reference in the Mahabharata to 1.7 billion people losing their lives in one of these battles. And that's going back probably 5,100 years, 5,200 years. That's a long time ago to have 1.7 billion on the people on the planet. And according to the numbers, the science we're given, there wasn't that many people on the planet back then. So something is most definitely off, but there's a reason why they didn't want David taking the census. And again, when we even look at some of the biblical battle numbers, you'll have historians that say they're exaggerating because there's no way they had that many people, but did they?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there is this global potato shortage. It's affecting French fries, for instance, from Japan to Kenya. And I had seen that where you can't get your fries in certain areas. But again, I would strongly recommend not eating at, this is just me, McDonald's, KFC, Burger King. What we've gotten from the guides is these foods are not only not healthy for you, they've never been healthy for you.
Never.
But the fact is, you might be getting more than you bargain with when you're eating it now, if you know what we mean. We talked about these foods that were being augmented. Do you know there's a brand of tomato that's actually put out there and owned by BIGFARMA? And I spell it with an F for obvious reasons. Yeah, we kid you not. There's a tomato brand out there that is actually owned by big, you know who. So what's in there? Who knows? Who knows what you could be getting? By the way, there's a cat food shortage too. Tampa Bay felines are not happy about it. We are really getting into the thick of it, guys. It is time to make sure that you are well stocked. For everybody, obviously it's everybody has different parameters, different abilities to stock up. You remember the government years ago told us, be ready for 6 months without the grid, without being able to get food, without being able to do anything. Can you live inside your house for 6 months and survive, basically, or just staying on your property? Well, I would venture to say that you should shoot for that to be a minimum if possible.
And also, this is a reminder, don't forget your pets. They're going to need extra too. And if you run out of these foods for them, think about what can you put in place. Can you stock up enough rice so that you can make rice and something else so that they can sustain?
Yeah, and when we do our dog food for the dogs, I'll typically use chicken or turkey in it, but then I'll add rice, and I'll add lentils, and I'll add sweet potatoes, and I'll add greens, and then we'll put turmeric in it, and we could put maca in it, spirulina and chlorella. All these things the dogs can take, and it will help them as well.
And ginger.
And ginger, yep, for inflammation. More food shortages after Omicron hit stores from US to Australia. We could see it. We could see it. It's getting pretty bad. I went into the store and it doesn't look like the pasta section has been touched. It has been replenished in a month at all. There's certain things like last time I went in the store, there was no organic celery, no organic carrots. And then I went in the other day and there was like 1 bag of carrots and 2 bags of celery. So it's hit or miss. A lot of times the meat section looks pretty darn empty. It depends. It all changes. Some things come back in, other things seem like they never get replenished. And here we see meat and egg shortages. Yes, bare shelves. It's getting to be crunch time, guys. 2022 is going to be a very challenging year. And we want to, again, not let this get our vibes down. And this is part of why we're trying to give you guys the mantras. We put up a mantra today to Yeshua and Mary, and it's both Marys. It's Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary. And it's a simple mantra that can most definitely connect you
to
them
sure.
powerfully.
For sure.
So doing something like that, that mantra is only about 7 minutes long. And if you take the time to do it heart-centered, focusing your thoughts on them and connecting to them so you could get your downloads from them, your guidance from them, you're opening up the door for them to work in your life. And we use mantras to so many different beings from all different nationalities and traditions, because benevolent beings don't work against each other. They're not ego driven. They're not trying to sabotage each other's workings for humanity. That's just complete human misunderstanding of how things are on the higher densities. They are working together. They do work together, and they're not ruled by ego.
No, that's so important to remember. The thing where people separate, that's a man-made separation, not these beings. These beings work together for the betterment of mankind.
Absolutely. So, part of the problem is you got so many people that truly are now falling sick, and also people that have left their jobs because of the dates for men in many different places. So it's producing all these shortages. And we had talked about the flights before, and this is going to show you 28,000 canceled flights later. Airlines are struggling big time. Did you know there's a national tire shortage, by the way? At a time when people are looking to go get their snow tires or get some new tires on for some traction. Yep. Again, this is all tied into everything we see with all those ships, congested at the ports. Nobody, less people to work on things. It's just a way too perfect storm.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's just so perfect. This is, the BS meter. You can't help but understand that it's going off.
And people are waking up to that big time.
Mm-hmm.
And they are waking up in droves. And no matter how much, the powers that be want to suppress how much people are waking up, they are waking up in droves. I suspect that a lot of times when we see comments out there in certain venues, and I see it especially on Twitter, I could tell, I could sense, that's not a real person. Nope, that's not a real person either. And we have so many BOTSs out there and AI generated things going on that it could be confusing. You might think that there's a lot more support for certain things than there truly is, because it's again, as was stated by top NAZI officials, it's all about how you get the public to think about things. Some countries are facing horrible economic situations. Lebanon's one of them, and they have rolling power outages sweeping all of Lebanon. And, again, if you're in a very cold area, that could be absolutely deadly.
Mm-hmm, very much so.
Yeah, that's one of the things that made me feel good about being in Florida. Of course, La Palma and things like that didn't, or the fact that I was living about 7 feet above sea level, that was not so reassuring.
Mm-mm.
But at the same time, if the power went out, that's fine. What's it going to get to be? 55 overnight? No big deal. And after 900 NU KES tests on our land, U.S. wants to ethnically cleanse us. The most bombed nation in the world is basically the Native American nations. And that's horrible. Why is this allowed to go on? And, the water supply in the Four Corners area, not great. You see very high incidences of the nasty C word in a lot of these communities. And again, the water is poisoned, the land is poisoned. These people have been herded onto, areas that don't produce very easily, food and sustenance. There's a reason, and the reason is because they were more in tune with the land. They had more developed pineal glands. They were able to see through things. They were more in touch with the fact that we live in a multidimensional world. They were in many ways more connected to the quote-unquote spirit world, the spirit realm. They understood everything that's going on. That's why over 100 million of them were wiped off the face of the planet, because they made it hard for the system to progress. And the system is an ancient system that, again, we could trace it back to Sumeria, when the quote-unquote Sumerian gods resided in their own temples. And, you know, when you think about all the things that happened with the sacrifices to these beings, from, you know, the first and best of all the harvests, and, you know, including other things that we'll avoid going into. But this system is still in place. Many people will call it Mystery Babylon. But, you know, again, if we want to get another Wikipedia, we could use that A word that talks about a certain species of beings. Our history is totally BS. It's all been washed over, constantly being rewritten. Mysterious horned helmets thought to be Viking are actually 3,000 years old. And these horned helmets were discovered in a bog in a Danish town. And so, you know, they're much older, about 1,500 years older than, you know, they thought would be likely to find something like this. And, you know, it's fascinating to see there are legends of beings that look to be Viking in South America over 1,000 years ago. Yeah, which is kind of mind-blowing, and science would say, no, it couldn't be. But, you know, what we're learning is that everything is a distortion and a revision. So again, how can we trust any science when we see the constant rewriting of history? So they say that this mysterious cube, well, you know what? It's just a rock. That's all they say. It's just amazing. Oh, this is amazing. You know, it's just a plain old rock that's pretty square.
Pretty square, yeah.
And, you know, again, would you expect anything different?
I know, right? We got to have a good cover story.
Yeah. But again, I think that's part of the Great Awakening is we recognize we can't take anything seriously when it comes to what they tell us about the quote-unquote science and what reality is, and even the history. We're better served going within, especially as our intuition develops, and they can't stop that. They're trying like hell to stop that. Yeah. And if you accept certain things, then it will stop if you keep taking certain parameters, if you keep absorbing certain things into your system that are going to shut off your pineal gland, lower your vibrations, stop your kundalini from rising.
Right. It's just something that they have in place, and we can step into it of our own free will. How do you know when you're stepping into it and when you're not? That's the thing. That's why we have to learn about this system so that we don't partake in it.
All matter on Earth, both live and inert, experiences the effects of gravitational forces of the sun and the moon, and they expressed in the form of tides. And yeah, it does affect our behavior. Think about that again. Think about the fact that there are people, again, that say that there are peoples that say they remember a time before the moon was in place. And what we have gotten is that the moon arrived here at the Younger Dryas cataclysm about 12,700 years ago. Before that, it wasn't here. And, you know, where did it come from? Well, it was basically put into place by these beings that we speak of. The Ainu, you know, Nakis. Yeah, they're the ones that put it into place. And, you know, basically also it was, you know, marking the timing of the dark age that was coming into being. And when, according to the Vedic tradition, about 5102 BC marks the full Kali Yuga. But see, they do exert influence as we are in the age just prior to the Kali Yuga. As we're in the descending, they start to get a stronger and stronger influence on us. Like now, we're stepping out of the Kali Yuga, so their energy and and their influence on us is going to start to wane. And it is. We're waking up. The moon itself most definitely affects us. It affects everything. And, the fact that it may very well be just simply another base, another, mothership, so to speak, of these beings. There's a tradition in Italy. The Etruscans are fascinating people too. They speak of an actual soul trap where souls that die end up going to the moon to be recycled and sent back down to Earth. And they even speak of these beings that are up in the moon. These beings that are known by several different names, and it does get confusing when we see people referred to in different circles by different names. Whether you hear of the Grigori or the Watchers, and many people are familiar with the Watchers and the Nephilim and the like. But it's interesting, the African tribe as well that talks about the moon being placed there by two brothers that are constantly arguing and fighting with each other. How could it not remind us of Enlil and Enki? And, what exactly was that cataclysm of the Younger Dryas, which almost wiped out almost all life on Earth? Mm-hmm. It was huge. It was an absolute huge, huge event. So, of course, it's going to affect us. It's going to affect our moods. It's going to affect our health. What if we didn't have that 23.5-degree tilt? And why does Western astrology not even recognize that 23.5-degree tilt? Because that obviously changes everything.
Mm-hmm. It changes a lot. And you can look if this entity can actually control the ebb and flow of our oceans, you bet it's gonna have effects on the human body for sure.
Well, in the time before the moon was put in its place by these beings, and before the planet was at 23.5 degrees, we had harmony, peace. We didn't have the severe storms we have now. All of this is in place to create calamity. It's all in place to create drama, to give us, these potentially catastrophic earth change events. And the moon will be removed, is what we have gotten from the guides previously as well. When the Kali Yuga is truly over and they're no longer able to control us, things will be restored to balance. And, there are a lot of legends about that as well.
Yes, there is. I mean, it's a very curious subject for sure. And just ask any police officer or any of our nurses, anybody working a full moon definitely sees a change.
Absolutely. So we want to thank you guys again for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Thanks for being part of this family. Make sure you are subscribed to both channels. Share. Wake up as many as possible. That's how we can change things faster. Be prepared. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.